go again. Hope it works.
Okay.
Hello everyone, this is Yash Haydari, your host at the first webinar of LaraX Company webinar series. On this series, we intend to explore how COVID-19 affects the business world from every angle possible. Please keep up with us and stay tuned for what next episode is going to be. Today, we are honored to have Mr. Lall as our guest. He's a transformational and foundational coach, consultant, author, and speaker. Larry, we are thrilled to have you here with us. Would you like to greet our audience first?
Yeah, it's first of all, thank you very much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here, and I look forward to our discussion today about the impact of COVID-19 for sure.
Great, and thank you very much for being here. I want to start the question first. What's your perspective towards the pandemic? Do you see it as a threat or an opportunity? I want an overview from you.
Okay. Okay. I think it's
I
both.
think it's both.
Perspective
and it's
you have.
about the perspective.
So it's a threat because it's of course a pandemic.
It's of course a pandemic. It's
taking the lives of so many people,
taking the
in
lives
so
of
many
so
different
many
groups,
people in so many different
of
groups.
course, yeah, it is a threat. It's a threat to the way we're doing things today. It's a threat to our lifestyle. It's a threat to our lives.
It's a threat to our lives.
But in that threat,
but
there's also
in that
opportunities
there's
that
also
have arisen out of
opportunities
those
that
threats
have arisen
for
out of
businesses,
those threats,
for the environment,
for businesses,
people in
for
general.
the environment.
I'll give you just one simple example. I think, as you probably notice on the streets of probably every city in the world today, there's less pollution, there's less traffic,
there's less pollution, there's less
and the price of
traffic,
gas took a
and
nosedive
the price of gas
there
took
for
a
a while.
nosedive for a
There's
while.
some good things, and there's
there's
some opportunities for new businesses to start, for organizations to be able to swivel, and figure out new products and new services to provide during COVID. I know there are several shops that, or actual alcohol manufacturers who converted to hand sanitizers.
Exactly.
There are fashion houses that are now making masks. You know, they're and the face shields as well, right? So I mean, COVID, every situation you have is either going to be something positive or something negative, but it all depends on the perspective you have and how and what you decide to take and make of the situation.
I do agree completely. But in terms of business, what do you think is this COVID-19 doing with the business world? Do you think it's generally a threat or an opportunity?
I think in the business world, I think it's an opportunity. I think from what I've seen, COVID-19 has basically set up remote work and work from home. There are many companies that have been doing work from home and remote work in the early to late 90s and into the year 2000, and 2010, and it started to pick up. But I think COVID-19 has exacerbated. It's made it even more critical for organizations to be able to deal with unforeseen situations and how to deal with them. So, in our IT world, we deal with disaster recovery service and business continuity services. And how do you continue operating business if you have a major disaster, or you have a major situation that takes out services? I think what's happened is, instead of that area of work, it's now with the pandemic. It's more it's more impactful on other parts of the business. So every single part of the business now is impacted. Every part of the supply chain, every part of how you deliver services is now impacted. Every part of how you operate services or products is now impacted. Can you be within 6 meters, right? Even physical location of equipment next to each other, if you're in a manufacturing situation, is now also impacted. So yeah, I mean, there's a lot of impact going on here, but the mother of invention is the necessity to continue to operate. So companies have to find new ways to be able to do the work they're doing, or pivot into other things that they don't go out of business.
Yeah, that was a nice approach. Good. So, during your talks, you just pointed at the disaster recovery. COVID-19 was somehow been looked as a disaster for some businesses. How can we take action toward disaster recovery? What do you call a successful disaster recovery strategy?
That's actually, so here's the preamble to the answer. So when I was working in disaster recovery many years ago, we ended up having studies done that pointed out 70% of businesses that stopped operations would not recover within the first year.
Great.
Today you have the exact same situation. Those businesses that ceased to operate, that didn't do anything, will not continue to operate. 70% of those businesses will cease to exist when the pandemic is over. So if you want to talk about disaster recovery, the ability to recover from a disaster is directly proportional to the plans you made prior to the disaster happening.
Yeah.
And it's also about your ability to swivel, or like people like to call it, to pivot, or to be able to do other things to enable your business to continue running. So it's the planning piece and the activities piece to be able to continually do in order to make your business function. I mean, because when you think about it, if you don't, you're going out of business very quickly.
Well said. So, huge number of people have lost their jobs as a result of the pandemic. What do you think of them, and how do you think they should face this new challenge that is brought upon them by this COVID-19?
So I think it's unfortunate that these folks have lost their jobs, and it's really quite interesting to me, because what has actually happened is it shows that the companies that they were working for just did not to their people. So it's like having a family. If you have a family, you're going to be with them through thick and thin. The companies did not. The companies by their people and by their through good times. Now they're them through good times. Now they're seeing them through bad times. So that's the first. The first. The second point is when those companies go back. Operate. I don't think they will find it necessarily want to go back. To work. And more importantly, I have probably terminated other opportunities already. The ability for people to be able to be resilient, to be able to be their foundation of themselves, and how they can deal with, and how they can react in really dynamic situations. So to me, the important piece here, there are two pieces. One,
There are two pieces. One, that abandoned them in bad times. That abandoned them in
to
bad
their
times.
ability to adjust to their ability to adjust to those changing business situations.
They're the good ones.
They're the good ones. They're the good ones.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Simple. Simple. Well, the organizations that did not get rid of their employees decided they were going to take a hit. Decided they were going to take a hit, just as they were. If they were going to, if they were going lose to revenue and lose market share revenue, and they were all going to do it together. They were all going to do it together. They were going to find ways to keep those people on in being able to pivot to new products, being able to pivot to new during the pandemic. That would enable during the pandemic that would enable them to keep the people. If they had a big enough bank account, if they had a big enough sustain it for 6 to 8 months, sustain it, keep all their people on board. That's what they did. Keep all their people on board. That's what they did. They of course they also went after all the government. Of course they also went after all the government funding that was available, so that they could go release their people, so that they could go onto the government funding. More importantly, those companies. More importantly, those companies that the important part there. The important part there of their people now to the company because during the bad times, company because during the bad times together they were in it, the trust together, the trust, the engagement, the loyalty they will now feed, the loyalty to each other will now feed because they went through it together. Because they went through it together, sound foundation for that company going forward. For that they company will come out of the pandemic. They will come out an even stronger company, and even they went into stronger company because of their commitment to their because of their commitment to their people. You bet. You bet. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think the ones that were in I think the ones that were in where people would actually congregate where people would actually congregate were the ones that hit so you know the restaurants so you know the restaurants, the gymnasium, the gymnasium, like I said, where people congregated. That's like I said, where people congregated. That's where it had the most impact. I'm just saying in terms of business, and I'm just saying in terms of most impact with the hospitals. The place that had the most impact with the hospitals. We're going to deal with unless you want to deal with we're going to deal with the hospital unless you want to deal with another issue. The hospital as a business, let's not deal with but the hospital. Let's not deal with the rest of themselves, but the businesses. The rest of the we saw the businesses. I think we saw here businesses with businesses with within large malls that had large malls 150 had, stores, that type of stuff. 150 stores, they were that really type of stuff. Hard because they were really when hard the reopening started. When the reopening started, it were businesses that had street facing external street facing entrance. So that you could have curbside pickup, or you could have you could have that. But pickup, all those businesses like that. Inside the mall, all those businesses I think are inside the mall. I think there is going to be a huge issue with malls. I think there's going to be in the next little while. Malls opening up many in the next little while. I think many of in the malls will not be reopening. In the malls will not be reopening. Anywhere where you had actual anywhere where you had actual people physical contact with people, those are the most in a business. I mean, those are the most. You look at. I mean, you look at airlines industry. You look at another one like look at another one like the hotel and the travel industry. The hotel and the travel they've taken and they are still taking. They've taken and they are because our borders here.
because our borders here are closed. Most of the other Canada and the U.S. are closed. I mean, most of the other Greece and Italy are starting up. I think Greece and Italy are starting up to opening up to tourism. That recovery is going to be very slow. That recovery is going to be very slow. The other thing too are all disruptions in the supply chain, getting supplies in and out. Getting supplies in and out, those were really disrupted, and people had to find other supply, and people had to find other supply to find stuff, and new manufacturers for products and services, products and services, right? It's been quite the sometimes just finding even sometimes products on grocery shelves. For instance, products on grocery shelves. There is a shortage of toilet paper. There is a shortage of toilet paper. For a start, shortage of yeast because people started baking more bread. Because people started baking more bread. Kind of stable, like it's been now it's a little bit more stable over the last little while. A little bit more stable over the last little while. Here in Ontario, I think we just went into Ontario. I think we just the second stage of recovery for the second stage of recovery for the greater part of the province, but greater part of the province, but under phase one recovery under here in the Greater Toronto area. So here in the Greater Toronto area. So we still. Now have the ability to go to a restaurant, but you're outdoor on a patio, but you're outdoor and you're 6 feet apart, and you're 6 feet apart. I mean that recovery is still going to be tough. That recovery is those businesses, and it's going to take a long time. It's going to take a long time from the 4 months or 5, from the 4 months that they've been, 3-4 months that they've been out of services. So right, so. Yeah.
The IT industry, especially section LaraX is active, the software development.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think here's the thing, right? Well, I mean, I think when you're in an IT industry, you're providing infrastructure services. You're providing businesses can't operate. So businesses can't operate. Right. You're building software for a customer. You're building software. The customer has a schedule. The customer has a schedule. They've paid X amount of dollars to have there. They've paid X amount of dollars to have there. Yes, products can be impacted. Yes, you can be impacted if that company can no longer generate any revenue. To be able to generate any revenue. However, to be able to pay you. However, if you're under contract, then you're probably if you're under contract, then you're probably still working on stuff that you're doing. When the recovery happens, I think when the recovery there will be a lot of pent-up demand. There will be a lot of pent-up demand that companies now see that as critical to their business operation. Critical because you have operation. You have to agree that when the pandemic is over, when the pandemic will not go back to being business as usual. Prior to business as usual, companies are going to use what they've learned during the pandemic. What they've learned during the pandemic. To make their supply chains even more robust and how they operate their companies and how they operate their companies. So from a software perspective, I think there's a lot of pent-up demand. I think there's a lot of software demand that's going to happen as we come out of the pandemic. When companies out of the pandemic, when companies realize what types of new applications, need to protect their businesses, need to protect their businesses going forward, be more customer centric. How are they going to do that? Focused. How are they going to do that?
And about this recovery again, what do you think can facilitate it? What can accelerate it? This recovery, of course, needs some tools, needs some infrastructure, and a lot of things I think should be gathered so that this recovery would happen and would happen faster. So, what tools, what infrastructure, and what help do you think can accelerate or facilitate the recovery after the pandemic?
Okay. So the only thing that's going to in my opinion, the only thing that's going accelerate that recovery to accelerate that recovery the financial impetus from the government. And it's actually financing the that part of the recovery. That part of the recovery. That's only half of the equation. That's the other half of the equation is the other half of the equation is people feel how confident people feel about going out. How confident people will feel about how confident people will feel about mixing and mingling that happened prior to the pandemic. So I think there is a huge unknown in how quick unknown
a vaccine
can be developed.
So that people have less fears about actually going out and doing stuff. I think you could still wear masks and do the social distancing thing, but people want to go back to where they're able to hug people in public and not have to wear a mask. And if that's generated because of the development of antivirus, I think that's what's antivirus. But I think that's other than that, the only other thing that's going to drive the financial support of the governmental agencies, investing and companies investing, bringing back their people, and investing in developing and investing in products, new services, based on their experience during the pandemic.
So the financial part of the equation is something the government can help with, but this antivirus or the vaccine is the other part of equation, as you said, which we have no idea when will it happen and what should it do. Yes. Great. So how business work, especially IT industry, would transform in the know that this pandemic, this COVID-19, will end sooner or later. But the industry, the IT industry, would change a lot, we know. How would this transformation look like, in your opinion?
Okay, so I think especially for the IT industry, two parts to that. I think the IT industry will become a lot more robust, and the remote work will even be greater and bigger than it was before, because the infrastructure is going to be even stronger. Okay? That's the first thing. The second thing is, I see there is going to be a lot of decentralization of the IT industry itself. And when I say decentralization, I mean you're going to have a lot of let's say development and work being done probably globally, because I think what this pandemic pointed out was that yes, we are connected globally, but we don't physically need to be there. So I could still have development being done anywhere in the world at any point in time. 12-hour difference development in India. I think that's going to be a more palatable option for people now, because they realize that to have people here isn't necessarily the right thing to do, or because of what they need, what the needs and the requirements are. Now the last piece I think for this is what the IT industry is going to realize eventually is that it's not about the technology, and it's not about the processes, it's about the people. And the reason they're going to realize that is because of the disparate way people were working during the pandemic. The lack of contact amongst workers and amongst teams, I think could be one thing that actually takes the IT industry to have a kind of look at, inside. Because I mean, you think about our IT industries and IT shops. The vast majority of IT shops that I've seen over the years is about the technology. The technologists love to play in the sandbox. And it's not necessarily about what the customer needs or wants, it's about the kids playing in the sandbox. Right? So I think that change is going to happen, and I think that it's ripe for the change now, because what everyone in the IT industry and in the development areas and in the delivery areas realized is that lack of contact that they have in the office was detrimental to them over the long run. So now they're starting to recognize that the human contact and what our customers are asking for is probably going to be a little bit more paramount in their mind after this whole pandemic is over, and they're going back to their offices.
Exactly.
So there's an interesting thought for you.
And I just heard about the teleworking and this decentralization you said. So the main point here is whether this teleworking, work from home actually approach, helped companies more or the people, because there are a lot of different approaches towards them. Some people like them, some people not. Some companies like them, some companies not. But who's the absolute winner of this situation? For example, I know Twitter have announced that even after pandemic, they don't want their workers to come to the office. They are okay with the work from home. So who's the absolute winner?
Well, here's the thing. This all comes back to what is the corporate culture like? And will that actually be a good thing to do or a detriment to the productivity and the performance of the people in the organization? So, I can only hope that the organizations that have decided not to have their employees come back to the office have actually done that assessment, because I think it might be to a detriment of some of the organizations not to have that personal contact amongst its teams and being able to develop the teamwork required to be able to deliver not just small projects but even bigger projects. Okay? I think the other thing to consider is whether or not the decisions that were made were because of financial constraints or because they really didn't care about the people or not. Kind of a harsh thing to say, but so from a financial perspective, if you're reducing, your footprint by 100,000 square feet, that's a substantial amount of savings. And if you're in a downtown Toronto or downtown New York, right, that's a lot of money. So, it comes back to what is the corporate culture of the organization and what do they deem that's the most important things and how they want to run their business. And all the actions and the decisions they're going to take coming out of this pandemic is going to be a direct reflection of what their core values, ethics, and morals are. And then it leaves the question for their employees to decide, is this the type of company I really want to work for? So I think that's going to come to fruition, and some of those companies are going to lose some really good people because they're going to realize that's not the way they want it.
Exactly. And there are, of course, some negative point with this work from home. What do you think is the disadvantage of it?
The advantage of work from home?
Yes.
From an individual perspective, you mean?
From every perspective you think, from a company's perspective or from an individual, because I know there are some people or some companies who are thinking negatively about this pandemic work from home thing. I want to know, is there any disadvantages from your approach or not?
So you're looking for disadvantages or advantages? Disadvantages, okay. So the disadvantages of work from home, in my opinion, is that you don't have that team building that needs to happen in order to increase the productivity of your teams. You don't have that. You don't have the ability necessarily to have that daily contact where, I think it's called the water fountain, the water fountain conversation. Right, where you kind of meet a colleague and you just chat about stuff and you have this great idea and you go back to your desk and you kind of work on it and you go, yeah, that works really well. That doesn't happen. What are you going to do? Send them a Zoom invite or a Skype or Skype them every 20 minutes to have a little chat? No. Like, you see, that doesn't work. The loss is in the human contact and the development of those teams within those organizations. Okay? To me, that's the biggest loss. It's about the human contact. And if you want to take that
that train of thought a little further, when we are down the road another 10 to 15 to 20, maybe 10 years, maybe, when AI and machine learning has taken over all those physical activities that human beings are currently doing and all those great mathematical computations that takes us months and years to figure out, and the machine can do it in under a weekend, like, what are we as human beings going to do?
Exactly.
What's going to be our role and what's going to be our function? Because when you think about it, it's about the survival of this human race, right? And if you don't have that human interaction and that human contact, what are we doing with remote work? Are we just making it worse off for the entire human species because we don't have that human contact that we so need? So, I mean, I think, to me, that's one of the biggest disadvantages, is that you're taking away the human contact that we need to be able to develop as people and as human beings, because it's about the perspectives of others that you can utilize to have your development and growth happen. So, if you're working remotely, how do you get that? Right? I think there's a good balance between working remotely and having, people in the office. It can't be one or the other after the pandemic. It's got to be a combination of work from home and the ability to be in an office with your peers, with the surroundings, to have that human interaction and that personal development and growth happen as well. So, to me, it's a very, very narrow line we're walking on right now, right? And we're tipping. So, on the other side, I mean, there are a lot of advantages for people who are working from home these days, because their ability to juggle, whether they're doing work for the office or whether they have some personal errands to run, they can manage their own time. Once they're delivering on time, within all those kinds of other parameters that you don't really got to think about. If it's working. And the other thing too, you got to remember, some people work well from home. Other people don't. Other people need the personal and the human contact in a team situation to perform well. So I think, like I said before, to have one or the other, to me, doesn't make a whole lot of sense. It has to be some kind of combination of work from home and come back to the office, and that is going to come down to the organization and the drivers behind the organization, and again, their values, their ethics, and their morals have those things reflected in how they're going to operate their companies, right? If they don't have that foundation, I'm sorry, they're going to make some really, really, really bad decisions. You can see it coming.
But in your point of view, the absolute solution is a combination of work from home and work from the office. And of course it will help for me as a team player. Actually, I don't like this losing of team essence when you're working from home. And yes, your solution actually works.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the important thing is that, like I said before, you need to be able to develop teams. People work a lot better collaboratively than they do in isolation. Right? I mean, it's a known fact. People are social animals. Think of how many people do not like this pandemic situation because they're so isolated. They can't go to a restaurant, they can't go out, they can't be with their buddies, they can't be with their family, they can't be with their their girlfriends or boyfriends. I mean, it's just, it's depressing. Just talking about it is depressing. Much less living it every single day, right?
Yes.
For some of us, okay, so for some of us, we are very fortunate because we have family that we're living with. Okay? But there are so many people out there who are living on their own. Who do they have? They've got no one. Maybe dogs and cats in the house, but I mean, come on. And they're told, so they can't get a hug.
you know, they've got to stand 6 feet away from the other person, even if they meet someone else, right?
Yes.
I mean, think of how bad that existence is. Come on. I mean, that must be really lonely, man.
Yes.
You know, for those people who are living by themselves, and there are so many people, you know, in the urban areas, or in cities around the world, who are on their own, living on their own, with little to no contact from anyone else. That's the really sad thing, right?
Exactly.
That's why you saw, you know, opera singers on balconies and musicians on balconies in Italy, right? That was the reason, because the social contact that people crave, they weren't getting it. So they had to figure out another way to go out on the balcony and start playing and see other people and interact, even if it was from, you know, 10, 15, 20 meters or 40 feet apart, right? They had to do it. And I'm saying to you, it's the same issue with people working remotely or working in the office. They need that contact. They need that collaboration. They need to be amongst their peers and amongst their leaders to develop and grow. Like, and if you stunt their development and you stunt their growth, they're going to be less productive.
Yes, exactly. So Larry, let's talk about the pandemic again. In your opinion, how do you look at this pandemic? Whether it was a threat or a chance for progress for people, employees, and employers, of course. Was it more like a step forward, a chance to step forward?
Yeah, I think the pandemic basically says to the human race, you know, you have an opportunity here to take a step backward, or you have an opportunity here to take a step forward. To build up your immunity, to build up your systems, to build up your thought processes, how you think, your critical thinking, to be creative, to be innovative, to be adaptable, to be flexible, to be all of those things. It's giving you that opportunity.
Well said.
Right? And think about all of those things I just said. It's about you becoming better under bad circumstances. So think of the experience base we now have because of this pandemic. Think of the new experiences people have gone through. Think of the new things people have had to think about, how innovative they have to be, how creative they have solutions were. Think of that thought process now being used after the pandemic is over to solve some of the even bigger issues that are out there that are going to face us. Okay?
Yeah.
So to me, this is a great learning experience for the entire human race because it's global, right? So collectively, I think of how many hours of learning and how many hours of information and how much new perspectives people have gained because of the pandemic. That knowledge base, I think, is insurmountable if we had to wait another, what would it take, 5 years, 6 years to actually figure it out, what we've learned in 4 months about ourselves, about the human race in general, because of the pandemic.
And it was not just restricted to people. I know a lot of different businesses all around the world had the chance to think about their processes, think about their functionality and improve it or change it, or even think about removing some of them. So what do you think about the information, about the experience, and about the chance companies gained?
Well, I think the companies gained a lot of chances in their ability to swivel or pivot what they were doing and what they were making, okay? Which gives them more experiences to be even more creative down the road. So here's a simple model, right? You learn from your past experiences. Okay?
Yeah.
So all the experiences you've ever learned in your life is now
in play during the pandemic. So how did you learn from all those experiences you've had in order to react to the pandemic? And now the pandemic becomes another experience you have in order to react to other situations and other conditions you're going to have, maybe in another month or two, or after the pandemic is over, or some number of months down the road. So again, I go back to the simple statement I made. This is all a learning experience for everyone, and the pandemic is pushing our experience base. I mean, deeper and deeper, further and further, giving people the opportunity to learn and grow, and giving organizations the same ability to learn and grow as well. Now, for those organizations that did not take the opportunity, they will eventually fail. Because the learning experience the rest of the organizations have had, if it surpasses what another organization has, well, hey, you can say that guy's already been left behind, right?
So, a company needs to have dynamicism so that they can change, and when they need change actually. What is an approach a company can have? What is a successful approach a company can have during these changes?
Well, here's the thing, right? The company is made up of a whole number of people. Company doesn't exist without people. I think you'd agree with that statement, right? So it's up to each individual, not to have a growth mindset, but to have an open mind, and be able to use the information that's coming to them and be able to distill it and use it to apply it in ways that they have previously not thought about before. So they need to understand the importance of being able to think critically. They need to be able to understand what it means to have the stability of the business. So they need to understand all of these things in the context of the business. But here's what I would say to thee. You know, there is an old saying that goes, perception is reality. You've heard it before?
Yes,
I think probably everybody's heard it.
Very nice said, yeah.
But it goes a little further than that, right? Perception is reality until you have a new experience. That causes you to do some critical thinking. That changes your perspective, that changes your perception, that changes your reality. And that's happening every single day, every single minute, every single second. But you have to be, as an individual, you need to have an open mind and be receptive, be aware and conscious about what's going on around you, because those are the lessons that you need to learn in order to take the next step forward. Right? Similarly, organizations can only be innovative and creative and adaptable and flexible because of the people who are in the organization. So if the organization doesn't promote the type of behaviors that are conducive for adaptability, flexibility, creativity and innovation and critical thinking, don't expect that organization to survive very long. So again, it goes back to the foundation of the organization, their values, their ethics, morals, their standards, whatever you want to define it as. If they don't have that defined as part of their core belief and giving their people the ability to think for themselves, think creatively, have an open, if that's not part of what they're preaching to their people, I'm sorry, down very, very quickly. Those are the types of companies that do not survive a pandemic, that do not survive disaster situations, that do not survive disruptions to their business, that do not survive transformation activities, because people don't have open minds and they don't have that structure or concept of what it should take to be able be transformative and be able to change because of changing business conditions.
A lot of different businesses had been successful before pandemic. I don't know whether we should call it by chance, but now during pandemic, it seems that what makes a company successful is a great mindset and a great approach and a good management. How do you look at it?
Well, great foundation.
Company has a great foundation.
So I go back to a foundation that looks at, their values, their ethics, their morals, how they treat their people, what kind of languages they're using, how they communicate. Are they building trust? I look at that first and foremost, because if that is not there, and they're not out to support the people in their organization, and this comes right back to the senior executive, senior management teams, or the guy who owns the company. If this isn't the mindset that they have, a mindset that's open, receptive to new ideas, ability to be adaptable, to adjust to changes. If that's not what they're preaching to their people, then what are you preaching? A closed mindset? What are you preaching? Are you preaching, well, this is what we do and I don't care, this is all we're going to do for the rest of our lives? I mean, that's one way for your workforce to just wither away and just go away. Because there is no challenge, there is no accomplishment, there is nothing. It's just, status quo. So it comes back to that, that environment that the organization wants to build for its people. So I like to say the work that I do now is we help organizations build environments, build and sustain sustainable environments that bring out the best in their people. Okay? And then we help those people bring out the best in themselves. And if organizations understood that it's the environment they're creating for their people, then all of this other stuff that we've talked about, the adaptability, the flexibility, the creativity, the innovation, the critical thinking, the leadership, all of those things are built on top of the foundation pieces. So if the foundation isn't right, don't expect them to get anything else right. So it's like trying to build a house, and you're trying to build the third floor, and you haven't built the foundation of the house yet. So so think of it this way: foundation of the house. On the second floor, I'm talking about things like leadership. I'm talking about how you communicate. I'm talking about, right? So if you don't have the right foundation that promotes the right leadership, that promotes the right communication, then the alignment isn't there. Therefore, how is that organization going to sustain itself? It can't.
Exactly. And and the management actually matters, but more than that, as you said, the foundation of the organization is what matters, and the culture actually. So it seems that after the pandemic, we are going to be huge, vast amount of changes. I think the business world, every single company we know will face difficulties with these changes. What do you think can help a company manage these changes made by months of lockdown?
Well, here for me the biggest thing about it, this is really about the change management model. Okay. So you go into most of the IT shops and you go into most of the organizations today, and they talk about change in terms of what's the goals and objectives, what's the client requirements, what's the resources we need, and what does the end product look like. Okay, that's change management today. But what they're actually missing is
aligning all of the foundational elements with those elements. Because if the people are not aligned to what needs to be done, then the goals and objectives and all this other stuff you're talking about is out of context. So if that's out of context, it'll never happen. And if it's not aligned to the foundation of the organization, and people understand this is what the organization is about, this is why it's being done, then it's really it's really a huge issue. And that's why most of the change management projects actually fail, is because there's a lack of alignment between the people, the foundation, and the outcomes that perpetuate. Now, more importantly, leadership and management hasn't built enough as what I call trust capital in their people for them to actually take this on wholeheartedly. Okay? So if you don't have trust capital built up, and that gets built over time because you now start trusting the people in the leadership positions because they've delivered on what they've promised. So you've got some trust in them, right? So now they can use some of that trust capital they've built with their employees to now have them commit to doing this change because of this. And of course they don't communicate, therefore the change project fails. So there's a whole range of things that we could go into. This is a whole other discussion all on its own, right? But those are kind of like the fundamental things that are missing. It's about the trust capital, it's about the alignment of the foundation with the objectives, and it's about how senior management communicates with and amongst the teams they have in order to deliver the change. That's to me the biggest issue. And if out of this pandemic you don't have that trust and you don't have that foundation and you don't have, you're heading down a very slippery slope. And recovery from going down that slippery slope is going to be very difficult. Look, if you didn't have any trust when you went into the pandemic, don't expect you're going to have any trust coming out of the pandemic. Exactly. Because if you've terminated half the people, where's the trust going to come from?
And right? Yeah, and as an expert in change management, Larry, I would like you to accept another conversation in future about how could we manage the changes. Of course it would be a perfect post pandemic thing, but we can have it in a short time if you agree.
Yeah, no problem.
Great.
So we can chat about change management on itself is just one major big topic, and I've done quite a lot of work in that area to kind of realize what the major issues are. And again, as I said to you before, it's not about the technology and it's not about the processes. It's about the people.
Exactly.
Change and transformation is not about technology. It's about the people. People. And I don't know why we in IT for so many years still think it's about the technology. I mean, the technology can fail. Send it back to the manufacturer. They'll fix it. It'll work. It's not an issue. But it's the people side of the business that we always miss. We always forget. We do not pay enough attention to it. We do not put enough resources into the development and growth of our IT people. Okay? And I'm talking at the foundational level of those people. I'm not talking about the technical training, and I'm not talking about the managerial training. And all of that stuff, it's not about that. It's about the foundation you have to build for these people, and these people have to build for themselves that they can utilize the leadership training they're getting, their management training they're getting, the technical skills training they're getting, so that they have a solid foundation that they can build all that stuff on. They can think critically. They can react to these pandemics. They can react to situations, and they can react to disruptions in the marketplace of
disrupting how they're currently producing, widgets, whatever they're producing, or how they deliver services. That's the kind of disruption that they need to be able to undertake and not have any qualms about how to do it, what to do it, and why to do it. If the foundation is solid, those things come very much more easily than if you don't have a foundation.
Exactly. Thank you very much, Larry. It was a fantastic time with you. You have given us great advice and information toward pandemic and toward its threats and its. Thank you very much for so much for that. And if there's anything else you would like to say, I would be more than happy to hear them.
Well, it's been quite enjoyable being here and chatting with you tonight. It's nice to kind of take a look at what's been happening and figure out what we think is going to happen in the future. But I mean, it's still up in the air. Who knows what's going to happen? Who knows what's going to last for another year, another year, another 2 years? I mean, I don't have a crystal ball I can gaze into. That's for sure. But you know what? I would like to wish everyone to be safe during this time. To look out for others. Because as I mentioned, there are a lot of people who are really lonely. And reach out to those folks if you know those things. Reach out to them because. The lack of human contact causes a lot of other emotional, psychological, and spiritual issues. Could lead to depression and all that kind of stuff. So I mean, reach out to those people, whether they're the elderly, or your family, or your friends, or your friends, or reach out to them because it's really important during this time. And not only during this time, I think it's very important. It doesn't matter if it's a pandemic or not. I think right now, because of our isolation and the lack of human contact that we were experiencing, I think it's even more important that we do that going forward. But I would love to wish everyone, please be safe, and I wish everyone the best. They're all healthy during this time. We all come out of this pandemic a lot stronger and better people than we were when we went into it.
Great, thank you so much, Larry, and thank you everyone for staying tuned with us. Don't forget, this is the first episode of a lot of different uh, just webinars to come. Don't forget to stay tuned in our YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn channels so that you can have more about these webinars. We still have Larry for more webinars, of course, and a lot of different people like him. And thank you, Larry. Thank you very much for being here with us. And thank you, everyone. Have a nice time. Take care. Stay safe.
Thank you so much. Have a great evening.